In this video, we're going to talk about the first part of the master budget. Now, the master budget is just a name that we use for all the budgets put together. And there's many budgets that a company has when we put together. They're generally divided between operating budgets and financial budgets. So the financial budgets are generally thought of as the bank statement or the cash flow statement, the budgeted income statement, and the budgeted balance sheet. On the and we generally don't focus too much on those in this class. We focus more on the production side of things. So the production budget, the purchases budget, cash collections budget, and the cash disbursements budget. Um, Now, whenever we're talking about the master budget, we always start with the sales forecast. And the reason that we do that is there's no point in manufacturing something if we don't have intention to sell it. So we don't just manufacture for the point of manufacturing. Now, various companies have different inventory policies, but in general, you can think of inventory. You obviously want some inventory as kind of a flywheel. So if there's a rush on things, you're not out of it, and and if there's and you have time to catch up on the manufacturing side. On the other hand, you don't want to over inventory things either. The problem with inventory, obviously, it costs money. You have money tied up in inventory, and so you're either having to borrow money and pay interest on that, or you're losing the interest on the capital that you're investing in that, which currently you can get 5.5-6% on short-term money right now, and so that's a significant cost. You also have to have a warehouse space for it, so that warehouse costs money. You have to insure it, and there's always the chance of obsolescence or theft or any other number of things that can go wrong with inventory. So you probably want some inventory, depending on the business you're in, but too much is not a good thing. That being said, sometimes we may use raw materials from places that are maybe geopolitically unstable, and or we may be going into a trade war with or something like that, in which case you may want to stockpile some raw materials in order to make sense of it. So it's just one of those things that there is no one hard fast answer. You have to look at the situation and take everything in context on your inventory policy. But for our example here, we're going to start with a production budget, and we are forecasting sales for the first quarter of 10,000 units in January, 8,000 units in February, 9,000 units in March. And then you'll notice I have, beyond the first quarter, I have April and May's sales forecast here of 11,000 for April and 12,000 for May. It turns out that in order to do a true production budget and purchases budget, you need 2 periods. So if you're budgeting on quarters, it would be 2 quarters beyond. If you're budgeting by month, you need 2 months beyond. Um, some companies do rolling 13-year budget or 13-month budgets, 13-month budgets, so that as 1 month falls off, they're just adding one more month to it. So there's all sorts of different budgeting techniques, but they all involve these basics of doing it. But I need 2 months beyond in order to get that. You'll see when I do the production budget, we lose May. And then when I do the purchases budget, we'll lose April. And so that'll give us the first quarter, January through March, as we do this. So we've got our sales figure. These are estimates, of course. We don't know for sure. And then we need the ending inventory. And so we're going for this company, they desire to have a ending inventory equal to 20% of next month's projected sales. So 20% of 8,000 would be 1,600. 20% of 9,000 would be 1,800. 20% of April would be 2,200. And 20% of 12,000 would be 2,400. You can see May, since I don't have a June, I can't forecast that. Now, so I have to make that for the ending inventory for next month, but I do have a beginning inventory. And if we kept to that 20%, we would say that our beginning inventory is 2,000. Now, when you're looking at problems, be careful, right? Because it will say the problem will say it expects to have, it's 20%, or it may give you a number, and the number may be different than 20%. Use whatever is given to you on that, and we subtract that, because if it's already made, we don't have to make it again. Okay. Now I can just bring down the last month's ending inventory as the next month's beginning inventory, right? So bring down the 1,800 and bring down the 2,200. Okay, so 10,000 plus 1,600 minus 2,000 is going to be 10,400. You can also look at the change in inventory. I'm sorry, the 9,600. I went the wrong direction. You can look at the change in inventory. The change in inventory is a minus 400. And so I don't have to make the 400. And so I do that again here. The change in inventory is plus 200. So I need 8,200 there. The change in inventory is plus 400. So I need 9,400 here. And the change in inventory is plus 200. So I need 11,200 here. Okay. So that is all there is to my production budget. This is how many I will produce during the period, or scheduled to produce. 9,600 in January, 8,200 in February, March is 9,400, and April is 11,200. Now, there are many reasons. You may want a consistent workforce, and so you may even out, right, your production. That's a perfectly viable thing. We see that, if it takes a highly skilled workforce, then you don't want to lose your workers because you're laying them off and they're getting weak paychecks some periods, and not so weak paychecks in other periods. You may want to try to forecast your annual sales and take on those warehousing costs in order to keep your workforce. This is all, this is the art of management. It's not all just numbers. So you just have to look at what it is. But this is what we're looking at on a budgeting plan. Now, let's suppose that each one of these units that we're manufacturing, 9,600 in January, 8,200 in February, takes 4 pounds of raw material to utilize. So the first thing I do is, remember, this is my production budget here. So the first thing that I do is I multiply each of these by 4. Okay. And so that's how many pounds of material. It takes 4 pounds for each unit. This is what I'm going to produce. So that's how many pounds I need in production. But I'm also going to have an inventory of this. And so let's say that we want 5% of next month's production needs in ending inventory. This is a fairly common material. It's easy to get. We don't have to worry about shortages in general. And so we're willing to run a little bit closer on this. So 32,800 times 5%. I need 1,640. And let's just say, give you an example, that we expect to have 2,000 pounds in beginning inventory January 1st. Okay, so once again, I need 5% of 37,600. So that would be 1,880. And I need 5% of 44,800 is 2,240. And see, now I'm losing April, which is why I need those 2 extra periods beyond. All right, so once again, I just move these down. 1,640 here, because that's my beginning inventory. I don't have to buy that because I had it in inventory, and this is 1,880. And so we start with the 38,400 that we're going to need for the manufacturing, plus the ending inventory of 1,640, and 2,000 minus gives us 38,040. Okay. Here we've got the 32,800. 1,880 is the desired ending inventory, and the beginning inventory is 1,640. Gives us 33,040. That's how much we have to purchase. And then finally, 37,600. 2240 plus 1,880 minus is 37,960. Now that tells us how many pounds we have to buy, but then we're going to have a price that we anticipate. And so let's say it's $2 a pound. So 76,080 there, 66,080 there, and 75,920 there. Okay, so this is how much we will spend on this material for January, February, and March. So that is our production budget to here, and then our materials purchase budget to here. Of course, you have to do that for each component that's in your manufacturing process. So think about, an automobile or an airplane with tens of thousands of parts in them, right? How much of this you have to be. So Excel is your friend, right? When you're doing these sorts of problems like this. All right.